The first thing you noticed about Marjorie was her hands. They were not the soft, manicured hands you might expect of a woman in her late 70s who had spent decades in the company of queens and princes. They were working hands with prominent knuckles and a slight tremor that she attributed to a lifetime of gripping a polishing cloth. For 30 years, Marjorie had been a part of the royal household, a position she had fallen into by accident and remained in out of a quiet sense of duty. She wasn't a lady-in-waiting or a private secretary. She was part of the behind-the-scenes machinery, a member of the small, dedicated team responsible for the care of the crown jewels. Her domain was not a gilded drawing room, but the jewel house at the Tower of London, and, on rare, momentous occasions, the opulent chambers of royal residences where the regalia was kept. That particular Tuesday morning, the air in her small, cluttered office felt different. It was charged with a static electricity that had nothing to do with the old wiring in the tower. A summons had arrived, hand-delivered by a palace equerry. It was written on thick, cream-colored paper with the royal cipher embossed in gold. The language was formal, but the message was unprecedented. She was requested to attend a private ceremony at St. James's Palace. No further details were given, only a time, a place, and a strict instruction for absolute discretion. Marjorie had read the note 3 times, her tea growing cold beside her. Her mind, usually so focused on the practicalities of her work, began to spin with possibilities. The only thing that drew the monarch's ring from its secure case was a coronation, but King Charles had been crowned nearly 2 years ago. This was something else. This was private. She spent the rest of the day in a daze, going through the motions of her duties. She checked the inventory. He supervised the cleaning of a display case and ensured the security logs were in order, all while her thoughts were miles away in the gilded state apartments of St. James's. That evening, she sat in her modest flat in Pimlico, the invitation propped up against a vase of wilting daffodils. Her cat, a ginger Tom named Albert, purred insistently on her lap, but she didn't notice. She was looking at her hands again, resting on the arm of her chair. They were older now, and the skin thin and mapped with veins. She remembered them as they were on her first day at the tower, steady and eager. She had been just a girl from Cornwall then, hired to help with the general cleaning. She never imagined she would spend her life in the hushed, reverent presence of history made solid, the crowns, the orbs, the scepters. And now, she was being summoned to the heart of it, to see the ring she had polished 100 times, and the ring that symbolized the monarch's marriage to the nation, the ring that was, for all intents and purposes, a physical piece of the crown. The drive to St. James's Palace was a blur of gray London streets. The black ministerial car the palace had sent for her felt strange, too quiet and too smooth. She felt like a fraud sitting in the back, clutching her worn leather handbag. The gates of the palace opened without a sound, and the car crunched to a halt on the gravel of the inner courtyard. A young man in a morning coat, who seemed far too composed for his age, was waiting to escort her. He led her through a series of corridors, each one grander than the last. They passed doors she knew led to staterooms she had only ever seen in photographs. Finally, they stopped before a modest, unassuming door. The young man knocked once, opened it, and gestured for her to enter. The room was a small, private anteroom, decorated in soft blues and creams, and waiting for her, standing by a window that looked out onto a small, manicured garden, was the king's private secretary. He was a man she had seen from afar at official events, always a step behind the monarch, a face of calm efficiency. He turned as she entered, offering a small, genuine smile. "Mrs. Marjorie Penrose," he said, his voice soft and even. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. And on your day off, I understand." He gestured for her to sit. She did. They're perching on the edge of a delicate-looking sofa. The private secretary remained standing. There is to be a small private family event this afternoon. His Majesty has specifically requested your presence. He requires someone familiar with the regalia, someone with a steady hand and a quiet heart. The words were simple, but they washed over Marjorie with the force of a wave. The king had asked for her, by name. You will be in the room, but you will be, for all intents and purposes, invisible. She was then led to another, even smaller, 100. She was then led to another, even smaller room, where a case had been set up under armed guard. Inside, on a bed of velvet, lay the sovereign's ring. Also known as the Monarch's ring, it was a stunning piece of craftsmanship. A large, deep blue sapphire was set in a band of gold, and with a cross of rubies over it, symbolizing the cross of St. George. It was ancient and modern all at once. Marjorie had held it before, always with white gloves, always with a sense of awe. But today, as she was left alone with it for a few moments, the awe was different. It was personal. She knew its weight, the exact way the light caught the facets of the sapphire, the feel of the cool metal against her palm. She checked it over, not because it needed it, but because it was her ritual, and her way of grounding herself in the midst of the surreal. Then she waited. She waited in that small room, the only sounds the distant hum of London traffic and the beating of her own heart. She had no idea what was about to happen, but she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that she was about to witness something that would be etched into the story of the monarchy forever. The wait was not long, but it felt like an eternity. A different equerry, but a kind-faced woman with a military bearing came to collect her. "This way, Mrs. Penrose," she said softly. They walked down a wide, carpeted corridor lined with portraits of kings and queens from centuries past. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her, judging, watching. They stopped at a pair of tall, ornate double doors. The equerry gave a gentle knock, and a voice from within bade them enter. The doors swung open silently, and Marjorie stepped into a room that took her breath away. It was a state drawing room, all gilded moldings, crystal chandeliers, and silk-covered walls, but it was the people in the room that commanded her attention. There, standing by a grand fireplace, was King Charles III. He was dressed in a simple dark gray suit, looking more relaxed and approachable than she had ever seen him in his official photographs. Beside him stood the Prince of Wales, Prince William, tall and serious in a navy blue suit. A few other people were present. The Queen, Camilla, are looking elegant in a cream dress. The Princess of Wales, Catherine, whose presence immediately brought a sense of warmth to the formal room, and a few other senior members of the royal household whom Marjorie vaguely recognized. This was not a state occasion. This was a family gathering. For a moment, Marjorie felt completely out of place, a ghost at a feast. She hovered near the doorway, unsure of where to go or what to do. Then, the king's eyes found her. He didn't just glance her way, and he looked directly at her, and a genuine warm smile spread across his face. He lifted a hand and beckoned her forward. "Mrs. Penrose," he said, his voice carrying the familiar timbre she had heard all her life on radio and television. "Thank you for being here. Please come and stand with us. You are the most important person in the room for what we are about to do." The others in the room smiled at her, a ripple of acknowledgement that made her cheeks flush. And the Princess of Wales gave her a small, encouraging nod. Marjorie moved forward on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else, coming to stand a respectful distance from the royal family, her eyes fixed on the small velvet cushion she carried, upon which rested the monarch's ring. King Charles then turned his full attention to his son. The room seemed to hold its breath. The easy smiles faded, replaced by an expression of profound gravity on the king's face. He looked at William, not as a sovereign to his heir, but as a father to his son. There was a lifetime of love, expectation, pride, and, Marjorie thought she detected, a flicker of something else, a deep, abiding concern. He placed a hand on William's shoulder, a gesture of comfort and solidarity. "William," he began, his voice softer now, stripped of its public resonance. "In a few moments I will do something no living person has ever witnessed. And I will pass the monarch's ring to you." Marjorie's heart hammered against her ribs. She had assumed she was there to take the ring back for secure storage after the king had worn it for some private family prayer. But this was a transfer. A private, unprecedented, and deeply symbolic passing of a torch that was not meant to be passed until the end of a reign. The king continued, his eyes never leaving his son's. "This ring is not just a piece of jewelry. It is a weight. For centuries, it has been placed on the finger of a sovereign at their coronation. It is a symbol of the covenant between the monarch and their people, a marriage to a nation and a realm. It has felt the heat of 1,000 anxieties, the cold touch of duty in the darkest hours, and the warmth of a nation's love in times of celebration." He took the ring gently from the cushion Marjorie held. He held it up, letting the light from the chandeliers dance across the deep blue sapphire. My father placed this on my finger at my coronation. His hands were cold," he added, a sad smile playing on his lips. "I remember that. The coldness of his hands, and the unbelievable weight of the ring. It felt, for a moment, as if it would pull my whole arm down." He looked back at William. "It is a physical weight, yes, but it is nothing compared to the weight it represents." William stood perfectly still, his hands clasped loosely in front of him, and forever be seared into Marjorie's memory. The king then spoke the words that would forever be seared into Marjorie's memory. "I am not giving this to you today because my time is done," he said, his voice low and intense. "God willing, I have many more years to serve. I am giving it to you now because I want you to feel it. I want you to understand, in a way no conversation ever could, and the true nature of the life that awaits you." He paused, letting the silence in the room deepen. "I want you to know the heft of the responsibility, the cool, unyielding reality of the metal. I want you to feel how it constricts, how it can feel like a beautiful, priceless manacle. But I also want you to feel the history in it, William. The billions of prayers that have been whispered for the hands that have worn it. The resilience of the people it represents. This sapphire has seen plagues and wars, famines and floods. It has seen the nation through its darkest days and its brightest triumphs. And it has endured." Marjorie found she had stopped breathing. Tears were pricking at the corners of her eyes, but she was too transfixed to blink them away. The king took his son's left hand. William's hand, large and strong, trembled slightly as his father held it. "Take it," the king whispered. "Feel it." And with a reverence that was almost sacred, our King Charles III slid the monarch's ring onto the fourth finger of his son's hand. For a long, suspended moment, no one moved. William just stared at his own hand, at the ring that now encircled his finger. He slowly turned his hand, watching the light shift on the ancient stones. He closed his eyes, and Marjorie could see a muscle twitching in his jaw. He was feeling it, just as his father had intended. Oh, he was feeling the unimaginable weight of 1,000 years of history pressing down